Good morning, everyone. It's Anna. Welcome to Virgo. Okay, let's break down what profound commitment is revealing to you. You've been swimming through murky water for too long, haven't you? Living in a fog of half-truths and carefully constructed stories. But something is about to cut through all of that with a clarity so sharp it might take your breath away. Let me share what I'm detecting in the swirling mist that's finally beginning to lift around you. The first thing breaking through is this sense of culmination. You might be experiencing that deceptions, whether your own or others, have reached their natural endpoint. You could be picking up on an atmosphere of reckoning approaching, where what's been hidden in shadow is being dragged into unforgiving light. You might be sensing that the infrastructure supporting various falsehoods is collapsing under its own weight. And whether you're ready or not, truth is forcing its way to the surface in ways that can no longer be ignored or explained away. Here's what you could be observing in the countdown to revelation. You might be experiencing increased tension in certain relationships, brittleness in conversations that used to flow more smoothly. You could be noticing people becoming more defensive, more careful with their words, more obviously uncomfortable when certain topics arise. You might be picking up on the energy of secrets straining against containment, like watching a dam develop cracks while everyone pretends not to notice the water seeping through. What's building in the pressure system around you is that you could be approaching a moment where pretending becomes impossible. You might be sensing multiple storylines converging, where lies that seemed separate are revealing themselves as interconnected. You could be experiencing the uncomfortable awareness that what you've been suspecting is worse than you wanted to believe, more extensive than you allowed yourself to acknowledge. And that gap between what you've known in your gut and what you've been willing to confront consciously is about to close, whether you're prepared for it or not. This reflection invites you to consider what you've been complicit in not seeing, because seeing it would require you to make changes you're not sure you're ready to make, and whether that willful blindness has served you or simply delayed the inevitable. You might be noticing that your tolerance for ambiguity has evaporated. You could be experiencing a new intolerance for vague answers, for stories that don't quite add up, for people asking you to just trust them without providing reasons why you should. You might be picking up on your own readiness for confrontation in ways that surprise you, where you used to smooth things over or let inconsistencies slide. You're now stopping conversations and demanding clarity. And this shift in how you're showing up is signaling that even if you're anxious about what truth will reveal, you're more exhausted by living in uncertainty. What's radiating through the relational web is that you could be sensing urgency from multiple directions. You might be picking up on people who know their deceptions are about to be exposed, scrambling to control the narrative, to get their version out first, to minimize damage. You could be experiencing increased contact from sources you haven't heard from in a while, conversations that seem designed to test what you know or to plant explanations preemptively. And these maneuvers are confirming what your instincts have been screaming. Something significant has been hidden from you. Um, what's particularly intense about what I'm witnessing is that you could be dealing with revelations that reshape your understanding of entire time frames. You might be approaching the kind of truth that makes you reinterpret months or years of experiences through a completely different lens. You could be bracing for discoveries that don't just inform you about one lie, but unravel a whole tapestry of interconnected deceit. And the scope of reconstruction you'll need to do once you have full information is part of what makes facing it so daunting. You might be experiencing fear alongside your desire for truth. You could be aware that certain revelations will force your hand, will make it impossible to maintain situations or relationships you've been invested in preserving. You might be picking up on the knowledge that once you know certain things, you can't unknow them, can't go back to the relative comfort of uncertainty, and that irreversibility is both the promise and the threat of what's approaching. What's threading through the atmosphere is that you could be sensing truth coming from unexpected sources. You might be picking up on information arriving through side channels, someone who wasn't supposed to talk, deciding they can't stay silent anymore, technology revealing what was meant to stay hidden, your own intuition assembling puzzle pieces into a picture that's been there all along. You could be experiencing truth as something with its own momentum now, no longer containable by whoever has been working to suppress it. And watching that momentum build is both validating and terrifying. This reflection invites you to consider whether you've been more afraid of the truth itself or of what knowing the truth will require you to do, and what changes when you recognize those as separate fears. You might be noticing that your body has known things your mind has been refusing to accept. You could be experiencing that sick feeling in your stomach every time certain subjects come up, the tension in your shoulders when you're around specific people, the insomnia that's been plaguing you as your subconscious processes what your conscious mind keeps dismissing. You might be picking up on how much energy you've been burning to maintain denial, and recognizing that the relief of finally knowing, even if what you learn is painful, might actually restore some of the vitality you've been losing to sustained uncertainty. What's also surfacing is that you could be dealing with your own lies starting to feel unsustainable. You might be experiencing the weight of stories you've been telling yourself about why you stay in situations that drain you, about who people really are despite evidence to the contrary, about what you deserve or don't deserve. You could be sensing that the fictions you've needed to believe to make your life make sense are becoming harder to maintain. And this internal collapse of your own narratives is happening simultaneously with external lies crumbling. The voltage in the relational field suggests you might be experiencing a kind of pre-storm electricity. You could be noticing that everything feels charged, that simple interactions carry unusual weight, that you're hyper alert to nuances you might normally miss. You might be picking up on the sensation of waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the reveal that's been building. And this heightened state of readiness is your system preparing you to receive and process whatever is about to break open. What's significant is that you could be approaching this revelation point with more strength than you realize. You might be experiencing yourself as fragile, worried that truth will shatter you, concerned you can't handle what you're about to learn. But what I'm witnessing is someone who's been building capacity through everything you've already survived, who's developed discernment and resilience. And those qualities are going to serve you when clarity arrives, even if the initial impact is overwhelming. This reflection invites you to consider what resources you have access to, people, practices, places that can support you through the disorientation of having your reality restructured, and whether you're willing to reach for those supports. You might be picking up on others around you who are bracing for the same revelations you are. You could be sensing that you're not alone in waiting for truth to surface, that there are others in your sphere who've been operating with incomplete information and are about to receive the same clarity you are. You might be experiencing a strange solidarity with people who've been unknowingly swimming in the same fog of deception is less than #0. 5 is greater than, and recognizing that when truth emerges, it will likely affect multiple people simultaneously is helping you feel less isolated in what's coming. What's pulsing through the undercurrents is that you could be dealing with lies that were motivated by protection, someone's desire to shield you from pain, to preserve your innocence, to maintain peace at the cost of honesty. You might be approaching revelations where the intentions behind the deception were arguably noble, even if the method was corrosive. You could be bracing to hold complexity, acknowledging that someone lied while also understanding why they thought lying was kinder, and navigating that nuance while also honoring the harm caused by being kept in the dark is going to require emotional sophistication. The atmosphere suggests you might be experiencing this as a portal moment. You could be sensing that what gets revealed doesn't just give you information, but fundamentally changes your trajectory. You might be picking up on the awareness that your life after truth will look different than your life before it. Different relationships, different priorities, different understanding of who you are and what you're willing to accept. And stepping through that portal requires courage, even when you're desperate for the clarity on the other side. What's also coming through is that you could be dealing with competing desires, wanting to know versus wanting to preserve what you have. You might be experiencing pulls in opposite directions, the part of you that needs truth at any cost, and the part that wants to go back to not questioning, not investigating, not demanding answers that might destroy the fragile peace you've constructed. You could be recognizing that you can't actually go back, that consciousness doesn't reverse. But the grief for the easier ignorance you used to live in is real, even as you move toward harder truth. This reflection invites you to consider what truths you're already aware of that you haven't fully integrated or acted on, and whether tonight's revelations will simply confirm what you've known all along but haven't had permission to believe. You might be noticing that your relationship to lies, your own and others, has shifted irrevocably through this process. You could be experiencing a new clarity about what you will and won't tolerate going forward, about what transparency means to you, about how you determine who's trustworthy. You might be picking up on your own commitment to operating differently in the aftermath of whatever gets revealed, to building your next chapter on honesty, even when honesty is uncomfortable, even when it costs you connections that were only sustainable through mutual pretense. So, as you stand on the edge of revelations you've been both seeking and dreading, trust that you're more prepared than you feel. You might be experiencing anticipatory anxiety, fear about what you'll learn and what it will cost you to know it. But underneath that fear, notice what else lives: relief at finally getting clarity, validation for what you've been sensing, readiness to stop living in the exhausting space between suspicion and confirmation. And those feelings are pointing you toward the truth that no matter how painful revelation is, it's ultimately more survivable than sustained deception. The lies are reaching their expiration. You might be hours away from understanding what's been obscured, from seeing clearly what you've been squinting at through fog. Whatever emerges about others, about situations, about yourself, receive it, knowing that truth, however harsh, gives you solid ground to stand on. And solid ground, even when it's scorched earth, is better than the quicksand of beautiful lies. because from solid ground, you can actually build something real. Trust your capacity to handle what's coming. Trust that clarity serves you even when it hurts. Trust that on the other side of tonight, whatever tonight brings, you'll know where you actually stand, and that knowing is the beginning of everything that comes next.